We all wish we could go back in time, whether it's to fix a bad haircut, stop ourselves from texting our ex, or relive the adrenaline-pumping magic of some of the greatest MMA fights in history. While we can't turn back the clock, we can take you on a journey through the bouts that defined the sport, left us speechless, and made us fall in love with MMA all over again. Let's dive into 5 fights we'd give anything to witness live one more time. At number 5, we've got the Korean Zombie versus Dustin Poirier. 2 fighters who threw the concept of defense out the window and said, let's see who can throw the wildest shots. Chan Sung-jung, aka the Korean Zombie, was already a fan favorite for his relentless pace and ability to absorb ridiculous amounts of damage. Meanwhile, Dustin Poirier was making waves as a hungry young contender with knockout power and slick grappling.
Can he finish it? It is all over!
Nicely done!
The fight between the two was electrifying. From the opening bell, both fighters exchanged heavy leather, and every scramble had fans on the edge of their seats. The Zombie dominated Poirier, from spinning back fists to flying knees, and attempting so many submissions that your joints hurt just watching. In the 4th round, with the crowd already losing their minds, the Zombie pulled out a Darce choke that looked like it came straight out of a BJJ textbook. Poirier tapped, and the Zombie celebrated like he'd just survived the apocalypse. This fight was pure adrenaline, a roller coaster that nobody wanted to get off. And honestly, it's the kind of chaos we need more of in MMA.
It's a fight, man, and then he came ready, hit him with some good shots. And, I made some mistakes, and I just need to get back in the gym and keep training. I'm going to learn a lot from this fight. He came ready.
At number 4, we've got a fight that was as close as it was brutal. Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit.
What do you see when you look at a guy like Robbie Lawler on the stage?
Intensity. He's an intense guy. I know what to expect, but yeah, that was an intense moment.
Intense indeed. This welterweight title fight was 5 rounds of absolute warfare. From the first bell, Condit came out like he had something to prove, throwing a mix of powerful kicks and sharp combinations that kept Lawler guessing, even getting a first-round knockdown. But Robbie wasn't just going to let Condit steal his belt. Entering round 2, we got an amazing display of offense from Lawler, who showed us exactly why he was a title holder, with beautiful combinations and even landing a big knockdown on Condit. By the 5th round, both fighters were running on fumes, yet somehow managed to turn up the intensity. That final round? An all-out slugfest. I'm talking about a who wants it more moment that made fans everywhere forget how to breathe.
Look at that combination. And a kick to the back.
The fight ended in a controversial split decision in favor of Lawler, sparking debates that still rage on to this day. But regardless of the outcome, this fight was a masterclass in heart and grit.
And I had it 3-2. Condit. But I'm not a judge, so nobody probably gives a what I think, but that's how I had it.
At number 3, we have a historical fight from the legendary Nick Diaz. When Nick Diaz walked into Pride 33 to face Takanori Gomi, the world wasn't exactly expecting fireworks. Gomi was the reigning Pride lightweight champion, boasting a 13-1 record in the promotion with a highlight reel of knockouts. Diaz, he was seen as a mid-tier fighter with a patchy 3-3 record in his last 6 bouts. But hey, if anyone knows how to rewrite a narrative, it's Nick Diaz. The fight kicked off with Gomi showcasing why he was considered the best lightweight in the world. He rocked Diaz early, knocking him down and cutting him open with bombs that would have made lesser men curl up and quit. But Nick, fueled by his iron chin and the determination of a guy who doesn't care what the odds say, started to take over. His slick boxing turned the tables as Gomi's gas tank drained faster than a white belt in a sparring match. By the end of the first round, Gomi was swinging wild, and Diaz was picking him apart like it was a sparring session. Then came the second round, and with it, one of the most iconic moments in MMA history. After a quick stoppage to check Diaz's cut, the fight resumed, and Gomi was running on fumes. Sensing the opportunity, Diaz pulled out a move you almost never see in MMA, a Goga Plata. That's right. He locked in a submission that looked more like something out of a jiu-jitsu instructional video, and Gomi had no choice but to tap. And here's the kicker. Diaz held onto that choke for what felt like an eternity after Gomi tapped, making sure the point really hit home. But this is Nick Diaz we're talking about, so of course there was controversy. Post-fight, Diaz tested positive for marijuana, with THC levels so high the Nevada State Athletic Commission ruled the bout a no contest. That's right, the fight was erased from the books because Diaz was blazed out of his mind, as he famously admitted later. Cue endless debates about drug testing in MMA and whether weed gives you superpowers. Spoiler, it doesn't.
They've been did everything they could to keep me from proving to the world that I'm the best fighter in the world, which I am. They want to have nothing but you know, they want to have nothing but weak sauce fighters in the sport.
Still, controversy aside, this fight remains a fan favorite for showcasing Diaz's relentless grit, his unorthodox submission skills, and the kind of chaos only Nick Diaz can deliver. It's the kind of bout that makes you want to hit the replay button over and over again. At number 2, we have Dan Henderson versus Mauricio Shogun Rua, a fight that could only be described as an all-you-can-eat buffet of violence. These two light heavyweight legends went 5 grueling rounds, with both fighters refusing to go down despite landing shots that could put a rhino to sleep. Hendo's infamous H-bomb connected multiple times, but Shogun somehow stayed in the fight. And let's not forget Shogun's own comeback moments, dishing out brutal elbows that left Hendo wobbling. By the end of the fight, both guys looked like they'd been through a car crash, but Hendo walked away with a unanimous decision. This wasn't just a fight, it was a gritty, no-quit war that's still talked about over a decade later.
You know, this one probably means more than most. Shogun's such been such a big part of mixed martial arts and such a talented and tough fighter, and you know, especially the year I had last year, coming off of that, yeah, I wanted to make sure I got a win, and I was a little too patient, I think, at the beginning of the fight.
At number 1, we have Stephan Bonnar versus Forrest Griffin. Some fights are more than just fights. They're moments that redefine an entire sport. On April 9th, 2005, Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonnar stepped into the cage at the Cox Pavilion in Las Vegas, and what followed was nothing short of history in the making. This wasn't just a fight, it was the night the UFC became a household name. Let's rewind a bit. The Ultimate Fighter one was the UFC's Hail Mary, a reality show featuring up-and-coming fighters competing for a chance at a UFC contract. 16 athletes, 2 legendary coaches, Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture, and one finale that would change everything. Among the light heavyweight finalists, Forrest Griffin, a relentless workhorse coached by Liddell, and Stephan Bonnar, the scrappy technician under Randy's wing. Both men had clawed their way to this moment, defeating top prospects like Alex Schonauer and Bobby Southworth along the way. But no one could have predicted what was about to unfold. The atmosphere was intoxicating. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Spike TV broadcasted the fight to a national audience, and the entire MMA world was watching. Herb Dean called them to the center, but there was no glove touch, just a mutual understanding that this was going to be a war. From the opening bell, Griffin and Bonnar wasted no time trading heavy punches and kicks. Griffin landed the cleaner shots, using his reach and pressure to push Bonnar back, but Bonnar wasn't just surviving. He was firing back with counters that kept the round razor close. As the second round began, the pace somehow intensified. Bonnar opened a nasty cut on Griffin's nose with a sharp jab, forcing the doctor to step in. The crowd held its breath, but Griffin wasn't going anywhere. The fight resumed, and Bonnar seized the momentum with brutal knees from the clinch. Griffin, bloodied but undeterred, kept swinging. This wasn't just a fight anymore, it was a test of wills. The final round was pure chaos. Griffin set the tone with vicious low kicks and combinations, while Bonnar, running on fumes, dug deep to fire back. Both men were exhausted, yet they somehow found a way to keep throwing. The cage became their battlefield, and by the end of the round, it was hard to tell who had the edge. The crowd erupted as the final horn sounded. It was a fight for the ages. When the scores were read, 29-28 across the board for Forrest Griffin, the crowd went wild. But here's the kicker. Dana White, clearly as moved as the rest of us, handed out six-figure contracts to both fighters.
I have gotten together and we've decided there is no loser in this fight, and we're going to offer Stephan Bonnar a six-figure contract with the UFC.
Griffin walked away with the victory, but Bonnar walked away a legend in his own right. Oh, and Griffin, he also snagged a Scion car, a dirt bike, and an Audemars Piguet watch. Not bad for a night's work, right? Dana White wasn't exaggerating when he called this the most important fight in UFC history. It put the UFC on the map, introduced MMA to mainstream audiences, and inspired an entire generation of fighters. Forrest Griffin would go on to become a UFC light heavyweight champion, while Stephan Bonnar cemented his place as one of the sport's most beloved underdogs. And now for a bonus round. Because how could we talk about the greatest fights in history without mentioning the legendary rivalry between Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz? These two didn't just fight, they gave us one of the most intense and bloodiest sagas in MMA history. It all started at UFC 196. Conor McGregor, the featherweight king, was set to fight Rafael dos Anjos for the lightweight belt. But when dos Anjos pulled out with an injury, in walked Nate Diaz on short notice. And boy, did he shake things up. McGregor came in with his signature bravado, landing heavy shots early. But Diaz, as we all know, is built different. After weathering the storm, he turned the fight around in the second round, dragging McGregor into deep waters. A slick rear naked choke later, and the Irishman tapped. Diaz didn't just win the fight, he won the moment, delivering the immortal line.
Hey, I'm not surprised, mother.
Fast forward to UFC 202, and McGregor was out for revenge. This time, he came prepared. Conor's game plan shifted. Gone were the wild haymakers, replaced with precision strikes and measured pacing. But Diaz didn't go quietly. The fight was a back-and-forth war, a gritty 5-round classic that showcased both men's toughness and skill. When the dust settled, McGregor walked away with a majority decision. But let's be honest, fans were the real winners that night. What makes this rivalry so iconic? It's not just the fights, it's the contrast. McGregor, the calculated striker with the gift of gab, and Diaz, the streetwise grappler who thrives in chaos. Together they created moments that transcended MMA and became part of pop culture. And while there's talk of a trilogy, one thing is clear. McGregor versus Diaz will always hold a special place in MMA history. And there you have it. 5 fights that didn't just entertain us, but left a permanent mark on MMA history. From Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonnar's wild brawl that launched the UFC into mainstream consciousness, to the heart-stopping wars waged by legends like Robbie Lawler, Dan Henderson, and the Korean Zombie, these bouts remind us why we love this sport. They're more than fights, they're stories of grit, resilience, and unforgettable moments that bring fans together. So tell us in the comments, what's your all-time favourite fight? And if we missed any bangers, let us know. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, so you never miss out on the greatest moments in combat sports. Thanks for watching, fight fans. We'll see you in the next one.